Hello, this is Trevor, also known as There Is No Try. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating for you the changes that have come to the Star Wars Minis Vassal module as of version 25 and onward. Okay, we'll start with everyone's favorite character, Mace Critdu. You'll notice that when you move him on the map, as always, his name is shown along with his number of force points and the number of hit points that he currently has. Okay, cool. Right now, the only minor change to that is that it now specifically lists, it says force points and hit points there, whereas it didn't do that before, but that's so minor it's really not worth mentioning. But here's something that's worth mentioning, and this is why I'm making this video. Every character in the game now has its cost programmed into it on the Vassal mod. Okay? That is, the character cost that you see on its stat card is now programmed into the character on Vassal. I'll show you what this does. You pull up a player hand, any one of the player hands, player 1, 2, 3, or 4. We are very familiar with this. We've used this for a while. We gather our pieces onto the player hand, and then as we put them onto the squad saver box here, you notice that it now calculates the number of activations and the number of points in your squad. Okay? So it updates automatically 2 activations, 74 points, and so on. Awesome, cool, that's interesting. Okay, that's a neat little change, right? But what about characters that benefit from rapport? Glad you asked. I'll show you. Let's take Elite Republic Commandos as an example. We'll just take the main 4 ones. Boss, Fixer, Scorch, and Sev. We know that each of them costs 25, except for Boss, who costs 26. So that totals to 101 points for activations. Okay, but we also know, or if you're familiar with these characters, then you know that Boss has an ability called Rapport. He gives -2 cost to every ally in his squad whose name contains Republic Commando, which is each of these 3 guys. So the total should not be 101 points, it should be 95. So what do we do about that? Here's what we do. You right-click on each character in your squad that benefits from Rapport. Not the whole squad, just the ones that benefit from Rapport, okay? But each one of them needs this to happen. You right-click on the character, you go down to the bottom of the menu that shows up and choose Set Points. A window will pop up showing the character's current cost. You adjust it, you type in the new value, so 23 instead of 25, and press Enter. And now you can drag him onto the box, and sure enough, he shows up at 23. And for Scorch, it's going to be the same thing. You could do the right-click option if you want, or you can just highlight him. See how he's now highlighted in pink? Yep. And now you press Alt-P for points. Alt-P, and then 23 for his new cost. Enter, drag him on. Sure enough, he's 23. Same thing for Fixer. Let's fix Fixer. Haha. All right. So we're going to do his new score, his new cost. Drag him on. Okay. So we have the cost now adjusted, and it now should total to 95, right? Instead of 101, and sure enough, it does. There we go. A good 100-point squad. It's just great. You could add a Spartan Demolitionist, and it's a decent 100-point squad. Okay. Here's the thing. My recommendation would be this. Do you like to have to adjust the rapport every time you use a squad? No. So here's what you should do. When you pull out your squad, you should adjust the rapport for all the characters in your squad that have it, and then bring them back onto this squad box here. Right-click and choose Save, because you don't want to have to do this a second time, right? Okay. So you should save your squad so that from now on, every time you pull out this squad, you load it and pull it out, it will have the appropriate cost, and you won't have to worry about fixing the cost again. All right. Obviously, as always is the case, whenever I make a Vassal module update like this, you'll need to delete all your current save squads and then recreate those squads again, and then save them onto your computer as you have in the past. Okay? Sorry, that's just one of the unavoidable things about adjusting things on Vassal. It doesn't automatically update. Okay? So anyway, let's say that you've built now your squad, and it's the rapport and cost is all fixed properly. That's good. Okay. I want to show you something. When you pull new characters out of the units and markers section, let's pull an original Sev out of there. He still costs 25, even though this one, who I've adjusted, costs 23. Only the ones who you've adjusted will have their points adjusted. The ones coming in from the main menu will not. Okay? That's just an FYI. I would highly recommend saving your squads after adjusting for report. Okay. Now, let's say you're playing a game, you and your opponent, and maybe my opponent is playing with the Separatists. Okay? So we are rolling attacks and we're hitting each other and so on. And let's say that he drops my boss. He kills boss. What we often do is we either drag him to the side of the board, right? Or we delete him from the game. I would recommend we don't do that anymore. You can get him back, by the way, by clicking the undo button. Instead, use the scoreboard. This is a new feature. It's brand new. That's why I'm making this video. F1, F2, F3, and F4 pulls up the 4 player hands. F5 pulls up the scoreboard. On the scoreboard, my opponent just killed my boss, right? So my opponent drags boss onto his kill box here. You see how this looks suspiciously like the kill box you find on the player hands? Yeah, that's because they're very similar. Okay? The kill box, when you place a piece in the center of it, will show the number of activations killed. It'll calculate the total number of points killed. And then the scorecard here right above it will take that number of 26 from kill points, add that to the number of gambit points, which we'll get to in a minute, and it will give you the total score, which is the big red number as we're used to. Okay? So then my opponent kills another piece, and it's not looking good for those Republic Commandos. They've lost 3 activation, or my opponent has killed 3 activations. Those total up to 72 points, and so on. Okay? If you want to get a quick glance of how many, of which characters he's killed, you can just mouse over that pile of guys, and it will show you. Okay? But let's say my opponent says, wait a minute, did you remember to update your character's cost for rapport? We can check. You just right-click on that pile, and then a window will pop up showing the name and the cost of each character in the pile from bottom to top. Boss was the first one we put on there, Sev was the next, and Scorch was the next. Okay? So let's say that you want to pull Boss out for some reason. You want to pull him off the pile. You don't have to pull everyone else off. Rather, you can just click him, so he's highlighted like that, and then press OK. That will pull him to the top of the pile. There he is at the top. You can move him back onto the board, do whatever you need to do. You can put him back on the pile. Everything is as normal. Okay? So let's say that I and my opponent are playing some massively close, crazy game, and there's 5 minutes left in the game, and we're not sure who's winning. In the past, you might have had to stop to say, okay, let's do a quick check of the score before we go into the final round or something like that, because we want to make sure that, we're, have a fair understanding of what's going on, of the game state, right? Well, in the past, you'd have to stop and pause and make sure you do your math again and make sure you don't, do bad math, right? Okay. Now, it's no problem as long as you have each dragged the guys that you've killed onto your own kill box. You're good to go. It automatically updates for you. It saves a lot of time and stress and tension. All right? So there we go. Major boost. So that's the main thing. The second thing is this. Remember in the past, we had multiple scorecards in the markers window because we had 5-point gambit, 7-point gambit, 10-point, 25, and so on, right? Now there's only one scorecard because I found a way, finally, to adjust the gambit value on the scorecard in such a way that you can, that we now only need one. And so the kills on the markers that you pull onto the board still work the same as always. You have to set the kill score, and that's nothing new. You can still do the name. You can still change the color, all that kind of stuff, right? No big deal. So you'll still need to do that stuff the same as before, okay? That is, you set the kill score. Whereas on the scoreboard here, it calculates it automatically. Okay, well, that's cool. But now you can adjust the gambit value. So you'll see the gambit value is listed by default at 10 because that's most of our games are at 200 points. If you want to change that, you right-click on the scorecard itself, not on the box, on the scorecard itself, and set gambit value. We're playing a 100-point game, so it's 5-point gambit. Okay, so that has now changed the default gambit value. And now we still have 0 rounds of gambit scored. So that's what these red and blue arrows are for. Red and green arrows are for. So you click the green to increase the number of rounds that you've scored. So you score 2 rounds of Gambit, and red to drop that number. You see that? If maybe you double clicked it, perhaps, or maybe you scored around a Gambit where where the character in Gambit wasn't expensive enough to actually count for that or something, right? You can easily adjust that. But here's what happens. It takes the value of Gambit times the rounds of Gambit equals your Gambit score. That added to your kill score is your total points. Awesome, right? Saves a lot of tension, a lot of work and hassle, and it's just easier and smoother. So I would highly recommend that you get used to playing with the scoreboard. You can just open it up and close it very easily. You don't have to leave it up the whole time. There we go. Now, when I was making these programming changes, I was very methodical and very careful when inputting the cost for each of the characters. Okay? But you know what? We have, 2,000 minis or something like that, or several hundred anyway. And so it's possible, perhaps even likely, that I made a mistake or 2 or 3. So if you happen to notice a mistake, please just send me a quick blue mail on bluemilk.com at username there's-no-try, and I will update the Vassal mod, and so that future versions will have the correct costing for everything. Okay? So I'd appreciate your help if you notice a mistake, an error somewhere. So that's everything that you need to know to understand and enjoy the new changes that are part of the Vassal mod. But you might have noticed something as I'm doing this video. So this is now a bonus from this point on, okay? You can close the video now if you want, and that's fine, but if you want, you can keep watching for a couple more minutes. You notice that there is different colors showing up on the screen when on the chat window to relay different information. That's on purpose. The dice, for me, are showing up in black. When I moved the characters around, it showed, you saw that they were showing up in gray, right? When you press the end turn or end round buttons, they're showing up in green. Whenever you change the score, it shows up in purple. That's because, you know what, it's a lot of work, or it can be a lot of eye strain to try to scroll back through a log and say, okay, now what was my save, or what was my initiative check last round, or whatever, right? Now, I've adjusted the colors so that it's just smoother and easier. It's not hard to do this for yourself, but you're going to need to make these changes on your own computer if you want to have these colors show up this way for you. Okay, so I'll show you how that works. It's very easy, not hard at all, and it's very quick. All right, you only need to do it once. Here, if you want to change your settings, your color settings, here's how you do it. You go to File, and then choose Preferences. A window will pop up that starts with General. You want to click on, with the General tab, you're going to click on the Chat Window tab. And now the ones that matter are this. You see the game messages number 3. For you guys, I think the default it shows up as is pink. What you should do is click the color to change the color and pick the color that you want. So for me, I chose gray. You can do light gray, dark gray, whatever. This is the color that will show up whenever you move a character around or adjust hit points and force points on the map. Okay, I chose a light gray because I don't normally need to reference that information, right? But it's there in case I need it. Likewise, the default color for the system messages is that gray, so I had to switch that, so I changed that to pink. So what I did was I just clicked the color and click a box in there, press OK, and that's adjusted. And I think probably I might have changed the others' text messages color as well. You can do that too. Here's the thing, you can make any of these colors be whatever you want. You can change them to be whatever you want, and it will adjust that way for you. My recommendation, though, would be to set game messages number 3 as gray, system messages as some other color. You can do yellow if you want, that's fine. But you can change any of these colors if you want to, anytime you want, okay? By the way, you can also change the font and the size. Maybe you want bigger or smaller print, right? And you can change all that very easily. When you're done, press OK. All right, there we go. That's everything you need to know about that. Play around with it if you want to. You really don't need to, though. So anyway, that is everything that I want to show you about the new Vassal module update. I hope you enjoy it, hope you find it a lot of fun, and hope it makes things easier and smoother for you during your games. So I look forward to playing with you on Vassal, and we'll see you around next time. Take care.